Mr. Speaker. In 20 days' time, new sentencing guidance will come into effect that the Justice Secretary has already conceded will be two-tier in its nature. It will mean that the colour of your skin or the religion you have can give you leniency in the eyes of the law and will plunge public confidence in the judiciary into crisis. But it is avoidable. We Conservatives have tabled a bill that, if backed on Friday, can stop this guidance in its tracks. So will the Prime Minister, will he now overrule his Justice Secretary and confirm here and now that he will back this bill, or will he simply step aside and prove he has in fact been two-tier Keir all along?
Well, everyone should be equal before the law. That is why the Lord Chancellor has taken up the issue with the Sentencing Council. But he needs to do his homework, because the proposal that he complains about was drafted in 2024. And the last government was consulted. And when they were consulted, what did they say? They said they welcomed the proposal. Now, Mr. Speaker, I understand that the Shadow Justice Secretary is taking the Sentencing Council to court. Perhaps he should add himself as the second defendant so we can get to the ballroom.
Keir Starmer's response to Tory MP Andrew Snowden at PMQs once again highlights his signature blend of arrogance, deflection, and political cowardice. Instead of providing a clear stance on the proposed bill to stop two-tier sentencing guidelines, Starmer defaulted to his usual tactic of condescension, smugly telling Snowden to do his homework. This kind of dismissive attitude does not make him look strong or competent. It makes him look like a politician more concerned with point scoring than addressing serious issues. What makes this even more pathetic is that Starmer didn't actually answer the question. Rather than stating whether he supports or opposes the bill, he chose to hide behind procedural excuses, claiming that the proposal was drafted in 2024 and that the last government was consulted. This is classic Starmer. When faced with a direct question that requires a firm stance, he immediately shifts the responsibility onto someone else. It's a cowardly tactic designed to avoid scrutiny while giving the illusion of intellectual superiority. But people see through it. They don't want a prime minister who dodges accountability with technicalities. They want leadership. This is especially ironic given Starmer's background as the former director of public prosecutions. As someone who built his career on law and order, one would expect him to have a strong, principled position on sentencing guidelines. Yet, when the moment comes for him to take a stand, he retreats into bureaucratic jargon instead of making a decisive argument. His inability to simply say yes, I support it, or no, I oppose it, reveals a deeper truth about his leadership. He is terrified of making real commitments because it might upset someone. Starmer's performance at Mox wasn't just weak. It was a glaring reminder that he is a politician. His obsession without conviction, his obsession with appearing clever rather than being decisive, is exactly why he continuously fails to inspire confidence. If he truly believed in his own principles, he wouldn't need to resort to cheap put-downs and evasive non-answers. But the truth is, Starmer stands for nothing beyond political survival. His response to Snowden was not the remark of a strong leader. It was the desperate spin of a man who would rather play word games than govern with integrity.
So Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall was expected today to announce a bit of a crackdown on benefits. And boy, is it needed when you think about it. In just 8 years, the number of people claiming out-of-work benefits has risen from 3.63 million to 5.95 million. And we can look at those who are on personal independence payments, we can look at those on disability benefits, etc., etc., etc. I mean, it's absolutely stunning in a way, isn't it, that those of working age not working is 10 million people. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary figure. So the Prime Minister, who's had this sort of big, quite shift, it seems, politically over the course of the last few weeks, now saying we've got to crack on, but Liz Kendall has delayed it. And she's delayed it until next week, and the reason is about 80 Labour MPs are objecting. And there are many, many, many from the charity sector, etc., complaining. And you can bet your life, inside Whitehall, there are many complaining too. It was once described to me as, think of a great big Alsatian in front of you. Now, you've got a bone on the table. You don't have to give that bone to the Alsatian, but if you do, try and get the bone back, because it's a very, very difficult thing. And Joe, that's the analogy, isn't it? Whatever gets added on to the welfare system, often for people who desperately need it, but increasingly, it seems to me, on the numbers for those that perhaps don't, it's very tough to change. And I think for a Labour Prime Minister, this is really difficult.
Well, you know, and good for him for trying, because
Yeah.
it has got to come down. And, you know, the next thing will be that they seriously need to look at the triple lock on pensions, which will cause an absolute
Another
outcry.
yeah.
But, you know, we've just been talking about farming. We know
Yep.
the government has not listened to the genuine concerns of family farms. We know they have not listened to the concerns of businesses, despite the fact they did before the election. If they're going to do this, because you only get one hit at this, particularly with a Labour government, you have got to do it really sensibly and really properly focused. So, you know, there are things like the personal independence allowance,
Yeah.
which are hugely important to people who've got some you know, illnesses or diseases and things like multiple sclerosis or cystic fibrosis. That allows them to perhaps have a taxi on the day that they aren't able to drive or something like that. So those sort of things are quite flexible. But there is nothing going on in job centres about getting people into work. There's nothing also, then it seems to me that this needs to be tied up, and the clue is in Department of Work and Pensions.
Wow.
You know, we've got a shortage of 25,000 bricklayers. Where is anything happening?
I know, and they reckon, Ranald, that the bill for people of working age on long-term sickness and disability could be as high as £70 billion by 2030. That's about one in every... 25% basically of all income tax. And you were in government. Now, of course, let's make one thing very clear. It's the pandemic that made this considerably worse. The effect of lockdown, the psychological attitude towards working, had a big impact, didn't it?
That may be part of it, but I actually go further back, and I think it's important to be very honest about this. I think, you know, we should have taken tougher decisions on this as well, and I remember some of those early conversations with George Osborne and David Cameron, remember them?
Yeah.
And, you know, they wanted to go further, but as you said a minute ago, there's so many people as part of the, you know, charitable sector, campaigners, lobbyists who try and stop this, many of whom are funded by the government to lobby the government to stop government taking decisions that the British people want them to take. And I think, you know, if Keir Starmer is serious about taking them on, then good luck to him. These are big, important decisions that will help fund our national defence and countless other things.
But it's a
we need to do.
terribly tough thing. Changing the status quo is always hard, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, we know how important it is for people to work when it is possible for them to work. Because otherwise, why have we had people marching and campaigning against unemployment in the 80s and a long time ago before?
I know.
We need to get back into that thing.
It's not even just these benefits, it's things like mobility and so on, which have ballooned in recent years. So we've got to look at all of these things in the round.
You've got to do it really sensibly instead of, you know, the terrible...
I just wonder whether you can do it as a Labour government, albeit with a big majority. I just wonder whether you can do it without some sort of manifesto commitment.
Well, in some ways it's easier for Labour. Because
well, yeah, but how big's the rebellion going to be?
Well, it won't be that big.
And
There'll be a lot of, but if they come out
The
with
truth
something,
is,
they say, but we're going to create...
Their majority is so big, they'll probably get away with it.
exactly.